Howdy folks and welcome. I hope this finds you well. Today, we'll be exploring Call of Pripyat, the final game in the original Stalker trilogy and probably the most acclaimed out of the three, for good reason too. Even though I adore this game, and I'll go in depth on why that is throughout the next hour, I still hold Shadow Chernobyl, the first in the series, as the best of the trilogy. If you haven't watched my retrospective on SOC, I would highly recommend doing so before this video since we'll be spoiling a lot of things and talking about how COP and the whole trilogy sets up Stalker 2, which comes out in November. Call of Pripyat brings a lot to the table and is kind of a conglomeration of the best features in both Shadow of Chernobyl and Clear Sky. It is also different in the fact that the linear storytelling is less focused on, and a more open world-like system is implemented, even though there is still a main quest. And that's what we'll be focusing on today, the main story of COP, and some of the side content that the zone throws at you. This was my organic experience. I had not played Call of Pripyat since maybe 2012, and there were only certain things that I remembered. So I'm going into this game with an open mind. Plus the fact that I had finished both SOC and Clear Sky right before, I was excited to see how GSC would continue the narrative that they've written, and I was not disappointed. I can't fully explain how much these retrospectives have meant to me. The one thing I can express is pointing out the beauty in these games through design, visuals, auditory, or gameplay mechanics. It is such a delight. You can feel the dedication and effort put in by the developers, and without further ado, let's get into it. There were some things in Call of Pripyat that I questioned, like taking away from SOC or Clear Sky, so we get no cinematic to start off. I was a little bit saddened by this since I love the graphical cinematics at the beginning of Clear Sky and SOC. What we do get is a retelling of the history of Chernobyl, some real and some from the game. You also get this great photo of the Miracle Machine or Big Brain from Lab X16 in the intro as well, which is just a vibe on its own. If you didn't watch the previous retrospectives or play the games, just know that the Soviets went wild trying to mind control people.
June 11th, 2006. The exclusion zone lights up with a flash of blinding light as clouds can be seen evaporating in the sky. After a moment of complete silence, a peal of thunder shakes the ground. Most of the government forces guarding the perimeter are killed instantly. 2008. Scientists are still unable to explain what happened. Rare expeditions into the zone usually end in tragedy.
Honestly, this is a good intro for people that never played the previous games and sets the tone perfectly. We also get the main overview for the quest we're embarking on. We play as Major Alexander Degtyarev. I'm just going to call him the Major, who the intro describes as an experienced stalker familiar with the zone. I really enjoy this aspect since it gives the character a more plausible answer to why he's such a badass. We're tasked with figuring out why all these helicopters the military sent in failed to come back, and blam! This was very confusing to start like this, just on a gameplay aspect. I wasn't expecting just to spawn in. It's kind of wild if you think about both Clear Sky and Shadow Chernobyl. They had so much smoother transitions. I know I didn't like the tutorial during Clear Sky, but whatever. It had better transitions than this game. Regardless, we are in the game, and oh boy, the music, the PDA, the random loners that you first meet, it's all coming up Stalker. A narrative I've heard a lot from people online is that Call of Pripyat takes the best of both previous games and melds them together into something unique. I understand the sentiment behind that, and will point out situations from Call of Pripyat that I think show an excellent evolution within the developers. For now, we're in an unexplored territory, and we need to figure out where the locals like to be. We're given directions to a beach ship called the Skadovsk. Honestly, I'm blown away to this day from the visuals of this game, and the thought of a ship being out in these marshes, well, something ecologically devastating must have happened. One thing about Call of Pripyat is that it is much less linear in terms of progression than both Clear Sky and Shadow Chernobyl. This is a main story retrospective, yes, but you cannot go through the story without doing some of the side missions, so I will be including it in the video since I believe they add on to the main story and create an interesting narrative, especially since the game has multiple endings depending on your choices. We meet Sultan, a pseudo-bandit leader that has taken refuge on the ship. It's a tentative relationship with the Free Stalkers, but for some reason, Beard, the bartender, allows the bandits to stay. Sultan offers us a job, and we take it.
We'll give it to him good.
Hey, what's going on?
Take a chill pill, man. We'll take them easy.
What is this music? Yeah, I have no idea why they put in hype combat soundtrack when it never gets played again, but whatever. We loot up the stalkers we killed, whoopsies, and head back to the ship. We can ask a lot of people a lot of questions about the crashed helicopters, and I really enjoyed this aspect of the game, the more RPG dialogue focus. It makes sense and is intriguing. You can also just follow your map if you don't want the story. It was late from doing the bandits quest, so I decided we might want to sleep, instead of going out into the toxic swamps from hell. So I found a bed and tucked in my head, only to be awakened by this message. An emission has recently occurred in the zone? Uh-oh. So, at the end of Clear Sky, the game before this, you and the team died to an immense emission after trying to stop Straylock from accessing the CNPP. Knowing that emissions are happening regularly is a bit daunting, and the thought of them happening when in a gigantic open swamp gave me the chills. But the show must go on. Call of Pripyat does a fantastic job with its open world layout, which is larger scale than both of the original games. Open worlds can sometimes be hard to pull off, yet COP does an excellent job because it creates these landmarks off in the distance that intrinsically make you explore. The weather effects are well done, and the ambient music adds on to the oppressive yet beautiful layers you see while walking throughout the zone. We get to our first helicopter and investigate.
All the electronics inside burned out. Even the power cable sheaths melted.
Okay, that was quick, Major. So I guess on to the next one? Our next helicopter is at an electrical facility or plant, I don't know what to call it. Anyways, what I'm saying about a fantastic level design is exactly what this place is, and its details. Also, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Stingray 2 gives us a bit more detail about the possible whereabouts of the crews from the other helicopters, if they survived.
Looks like the crew died in midair and the helicopter simply crashed because there was nobody there to fly it. The onboard computer was a little luckier. I wonder if there's anything useful here. Ah, there's something. A map of the area with certain locations marked. That should come in handy.
We head eastward and stumble upon another beach ship. These are really cool aesthetics.
Go to hell, freaking muties!
Wow, another guy with a pseudo dog. Hi, baby girl. So this is one of the things I'm hoping for in Stalker 2 is that we get transitions a little bit better by having dialogue or something that's just not cut to black loading screen. By the way, this is Noah, and he knows where to find the third helicopter. Unfortunately, we need to use a teleporting anomaly, which I don't know if they know this, but I'm certain with the amount of time Noah has been in the zone that anomalies change after each emission. It's something the Major does not know at this time. so we're lucky if this goes safely. Could you imagine next week it just teleports them to the CNPP or the hospital? Anyways, we jump and find ourselves on the plateau with a nice pun from Noah.
Nice jump. Feel free to drop by sometime.
We also encounter our first mutant, surprisingly, and it's the Snork. I'm glad they changed the audio just a little bit. They sounded way too much like lions in the last games. However, I hate them in Call of Pripyat because of how tanky they are, and they come at you in numbers. Anyways, we get to Helicopter 3 and listen to the Major.
So Stingray 3 had engine failure in both engines. What else is there? A map with what look like possible evacuation locations. Positions B2, B28, and B205. Interesting.
This helicopter has the evacuation locations from the military if the mission was botched. So, if the next helicopters are done for as well, we can at least check these evac locations. We also accept a mission to investigate mercenaries that had created a base in the south. These mercenaries were absolutely kitted to the nines, and it was a fun fight. Nothing like a shotgun to a merc's head. Going back to the open world layout for a second, it is hard to pull off. Another thing COP has going for it is populating its world with random stalker groups. Trudging through the tall leaves exhausted, only to hear the beautiful serenade of a harmonica from a free stalker, gave me these moments like I was in an Elder Scrolls game.
Speak to the boss.
We found each helicopter that crashed in Zaton, and now we have to make our way south. Which is weird, since how did the Major enter the zone without coming from the south? We meet our guide pilot, who graciously takes us down south to Yanov Station, one of the most iconic places in the series. Not only does it look cool, but it also has some great implications for the lore. Yanov is separated by duty and freedom, two mortal enemies, but have learned to cohabitate this small station. Plus, it works as a sanctuary for other stalkers seeking to go farther into the zone. It also has a lot of characters that you can interact with, not only the faction leaders, but there are some other specialists like the Hunter Trapper in the basement and the Engineer Nitro on the first floor, plus the many randoms that need help, like Uncle Yar. Now, Uncle Yar is part of Freedom, but it seems like he does a little bit more stuff outside the Freedom book.
Looks like a quiet village. Unless we disturb the local residents.
He asks us if we can escort him to a small village, and yeah, I was not expecting this. Why don't zombies do this in the last games? It would have made Yantar so much easier. We get to this abandoned house to set up shop. Apparently Uncle Yar is somehow in deep with the mercenaries and we have to take them out. This is something I absolutely love about COP. It blends the open world with these really tight directed story points or situations. This is one of those evolutions that you can definitely see throughout the trilogy. Like this part when I was a kid, I just blew through the zombies thinking they would attack me, but now doing it stealthily, you can see the difference.
Looks like I was right after all. Shoot those bastards down!
Also, look at the bullet spread. They did change it after Clear Sky, thank the Stalker gods. And that was easy with the zombies. After taking out the mercenary squad, we can ask Uncle Yar why he was being chased, and he has an interesting answer. He says that he overheard some mercenaries talking about an urgent order for a central lab in Pripyat. I wonder. We head back to Yanov Station, and if you're interested in learning about the factions, you can do a deep dive into their individual leaders, explaining their history and context to the player. You can also get some great explanations of the mutants by Trapper, but honestly, I would have loved for the encyclopedia from Shadow of Chernobyl to stay around. This is great world building, having it through an NPC character, and I would also like to bring back the more quote-unquote game-breaking explanation as well, but that's just me. Again, I was a very big fan of the encyclopedia. Our next stop might be a familiar facade. Once getting to what seems to be a reinforced science bunker, we meet a familiar faction, but only one of them. Novikov is part of Clear Sky and is one of the last remaining members since the rest got their heads melted at the CNPP, or so we think. He has an interesting line about his fellow faction friends, which is kind of backhanded, saying they were blind in the pursuit of a hazy goal. Yeah, that's straight up facts, screw Lebedev. But another thing this bunker has is one of the military personnel from the helicopters, who is hunkering down since he claims the zone is too dangerous to proceed to the evacuation point. We head to the evac area to find this door that I don't know if you can find a code for. If you can, please let me know in the comments below. You can also find this note from the rest of the military squad saying they went to position B-28 at the end of Pripyat. We still have 2 helicopters left and a question. How the heck are we supposed to get into that cursed city? On our way back to Yanov, we happen to find a group of stalkers, and not just any group. These guys are former Monolith, and if you've played the last 2 games, you know that Monolith do not mess around. Talking to Strider, their leader, you have this great conversation about the voice and them breaking free from it. There is a questline you can go through with them getting accepted to freedom, but for this playthrough I did not go about that, which definitely affected the ending. I'll be excited to see how this narrative of former Monolith soldiers continues in Stalker 2, and how or why certain Monolith guards are free of the voice and others still fight for it. Anyways, we do a side quest for the random bum in Yanov to cover his debt. I'm joking, of course, we'll get to him later, and go search for helicopter number 4. Now, if you know, you know, but the first time walking towards this helicopter, you'd be lying if you said you got through it unscathed.
Two bodies. Looks like they died in the crash. Everything of value has been looted and the onboard computer has been wiped clean. But the black box is still intact. Interesting. I reckon a decent technician will be able to extract the information on it and decode it.
Also, see what I mean about directed events? It doesn't have to be on rails, but they had a vision for what they wanted to show, and this is one of the more iconic moments from the franchise for me personally. Helicopter number 4 contains a black box that is undamaged, so we give it to our engineer technician Nitro, who tells us it will take some time to translate, or whatever, which gives us a good moment to explore the zone, grab some artifacts, and kill some baddies. After the allotted time, we get the audio from the black box, and it gives us information that we already knew?
Stingray 4, come in. Come in, damn it. Stingray 4, do you read? Attention Stingray Group, this is Stingray 1. The emergency evacuation position is B28. I repeat, B28.
So I guess it wasn't worth being blown up by all those mines after all. It starts raining and this atmosphere cannot be beat. It evokes a lot of emotions from me since it reminds me of my first true dystopian shooter, Fallout 3. Something about going through abandoned buildings that once held so much relevance and power is an awe-inspiring feeling, in all senses of that word. Stalker definitely provides this with so many establishments around the zone, and yet all of them left derelict and gone. It plays a huge part in the world and zone itself, and gives reason to the cause of the zone reclaiming the land for something one could call a beautiful revival. Especially going through this old Soviet plant, There was something so sinister yet peaceful about this place, except for the dogs and random bloodsucker body lying around. That was just plain creepy. Anyways, we find documents indicating there is an underground system between the plant and Pripyat, but it has been locked and will take some effort getting into. Damn, these Soviets are freaking wild, aren't they? Going further into the facility, we find even more documents indicating the underground after being sealed was filled with noxious gas for some reason. Then we get one of my personal favorite moments in my recent gaming memory.
Attention! Attention! An emission is about to hit! Find cover immediately!
I think this is what people want when they talk about the open world of Stalker and the elements that come with that. Yeah, experiencing a dog attack since they're running away from the emission that is changing the sky blood red, and you only see this because of the demolished ceiling, is why I love video games so much, and the Stalker series. This evokes the same emotions that I get from a powerful movie or art piece, maybe even more since I was the one controlling the character.
The emission is over. I hope everyone's okay. If you're...
We get to the next helicopter and figure out that the anomaly protection on the helicopter was still intact, but everything else was fried. We also find documents stating that the lock can be opened from the plant, but a generator is needed and will probably need some protection as well, since radioactive gas has been steeping there for God knows how long. With all the documents in order, we head back to Yanov Station and inform Nitro of our discoveries. After he has time to peruse the notes we collected, he thinks he'll be able not only to restore power, but open the lock as well. Yet he also warns us that we'll probably need to bring a couple of other stalkers with us for protection, and definitely get protection suits. The first guy we talk with about the mission is Zulu, who almost drinks us to death. I didn't really understand this part. For each piece of information, you have to take a shot of vodka. We pass out and then Zulu just agrees to the mission, and he'll train any fighters we bring him? I'm so confused. This portion of the game is a bit extended since you'll save up a lot of rubles to buy the Seva suits, but don't worry. It gives you opportunities to explore the zone more, talk to people, and gain some notoriety. One of the fun interactions you can have is with Professor Herman in the science bunker near Yanov. You can ask him all sorts of questions about his work, and one of the more interesting pieces of information he gives us is that he's visited Yantar, and specifically Sakharov's labs, which means that old son of a bitch is still there and alive. We also talk with Sokolov, the military guy who's scared of the zone, and convince him that he has a better chance at escaping this place if they come with us. Oh god, if he only knew what was in the underground. We also get the vagabond who owed money to the bandits to join us somehow, and after 3 hours of fetching artifacts and completing side quests, us four head to the plant and open the lock.
There we go. That's better.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Again, this is an iconic moment. What comes next is one of my favorite parts of the whole franchise. The underground is perfect, and it's not Metro, it's something else. You can see the elaborate methods that the Soviets used to transport whatever the hell they needed from civilian areas to their research plants and facilities. It tells so much about the story without saying a word. It's just what is. It goes back to something that if an avid listener is here, probably is screaming at me to stop saying it at this point, that Stalker feels like a lived-in world. I can plausibly see all of this being built for a purpose, and we're just some small character in a much larger narrative. We experience the zone through 3 sets of eyes, Strelok, Scars, and now the Majors. It's truly fantastical to have these moments with completely opposite characters and what it would mean to them. I also wonder if Straylock used these tunnels, not specifically this one, in order to get past the Scorcher. But for as awesome as I thought this place was, it was not awesome for my teammates, who got assaulted by Snorks, and god damn, these guys were vicious.
Zulu is down!
Yeah, I wasn't too angry about losing Zulu, but Vano's death hurt me emotionally. So it was just me and the military wussy. Sorry, after countless Snork attacks reminding me of Ravenholm and Half-Life 2, my stress levels were off the charts. Combine that with a dwindling supply of ammo and only mutants attacking us, I was thinking I might have been unprepared for this place. Wow, the scope of this underground is again breathtaking. Another door needs power, and once we hit the switch, we get attacked by monolith soldiers. I thought this was very interesting since we had met the squad earlier that wasn't under the influence of the voice. Having to fight skilled monolith fighters that were definitely sent there, not like they were just camping in the underground, made me think, why? Why send them? Who sent them? And for what purpose? Just to stop the Major from reaching Pripyat? Anyways, after barely defeating the monolith foes and a ton of zombies throughout the smaller tunnel system, we finally reach our destination, Pripyat.
Put your weapons on the ground, now!
Don't shoot! I'm Lieutenant Sokolov, co-pilot of Stingray 4. I'm on my way to B-28, the emergency position.
I have information for Kowalski. Take me to him.
You know Kowalski?
Who are you? What's your business with the commander?
I'm Major Dektyrev, USS. I'm here to investigate the failure of Operation Fairway.
I knew it!
After being found by the squad of military, we make our way to their base in the laundromat and talk with Colonel Kowalski. The colonel informs us that half the military personnel within the mission died, and thinks that the helicopters were targeted somehow with ground-to-air weapons. He attributes it to the gauze rifle that monolith soldiers used during the first assault of the CNPP. Also, fortuitously, a squad with said gauze rifle is around Pripyat, and we can hunt them down. Kowalski also can tell the Major more about the helicopters, but something isn't adding up, and we'll get to that later. For now, the Colonel just welcomes us to hell, and we get on our merry way to finding this item A-17 as they call it. At least they categorize their stuff. Anyways, we meet up with another military squad and try to set up an ambush for this monolith squad carrying the gauze rifle. This was another great set piece, and I really enjoyed the mystery on how the monolith forces knew about our ambush.
Let's check them out. Ice cover us. It's an ambush. Take cover.
We thank you, O Monolith, for revealing the cunning plans of your enemies to us. May your light shine down on the souls of the brave soldiers who gave their lives in service to your will. Onward, warriors of the Monolith.
After picking up the experimental gun and taking out the remaining monolith soldiers, we get back to the Colonel to discover that the gun was damaged during the fight and is not working. The Colonel and Major get interrupted by a radio message from a recon unit in distress.
No! What the hell is that? Wait! We're all dead. Help! Someone help me! Get that thing away from me! No!
Sadly, we get to the location of the recon unit and find their bodies. Their lives won't be in vain though, since they gave coordinates of the monolith positions and we're going to flush them out. Before attacking into the position, another emission occurs and we wait it out. This was pretty freaky since you can hear the monolith guard talking. It's pretty faint, but he keeps saying, "We await your orders, O monolith. Why can't we hear your voice, O monolith?" So maybe they're just brainwashed fully and some like Strider aren't? We kill off the squad and get a great cutscene.
Kowalski, something strange is going on here. There were loads of monolith fighters inside the building. They were all in a trance and talking to a pile of trash. I examined this pile, and if you cut through the crap, it resembles a primitive antenna. It seems that someone talks to them through this antenna, and they believe it to be divine intervention.
This is all very strange. Someone's controlling these fanatics. We'll get back to this later.
I wonder who is actually controlling them, since they're saying they can't hear the voice. It does make me think of Strelok and how he might have not finished the job in the first game. That being killing off sea consciousness, since monolith are only there for the protection of them and the interior of the CNPP. We get information that Cardin, one of the engineers on the beach ship back in Zaton, might have some way of fixing the experimental rifle. But when we get to him, this happens?
662? That's impossible.
Are you okay, Cardin? After Cardin awakes from what seems to be a drunken stupor, there is a lot more to this than I first thought. Cardin exclaims that seeing the rifle wasn't a dream, that he had previously worked on the project as well. Get this though, the date he gives for the ending of the project was 2004, 2 years before the zone appears due to sea consciousness. So Cardin definitely knows about the X-Labs and other facilities in the area. But Cardin can't fix the gun without the schematics, so he gives us his old key card that he somehow still has intact and tells us where to find the secret lab. Again, it's one of those amazing parts of open world games going back to areas previously explored. Now with a key that unlocks something new, there's probably a German word for it, but coming back to the plant now with a VSS, great armor, and some good artifacts, I couldn't help but feel accomplished. We enter the testing facility and encounter a ton of zombies. Oddly enough, have they just been chilling down here since 2004? I enjoyed the idea of weapons testing facility and the fact that the Soviets tried out so many random things around the zone. It's quite a feat, especially for whoever got this dicking contract. Sheesh. We go down the steps and oh boy. Pseudo-giants in this game hit even harder than Clear Sky, and that's saying something. This was a great arena to fight this guy in, and I like the area itself, this weapon testing facility. You can also see the damage the rifle causes. I just wish I had it for this fight. Using all our ingenuity, we hide underneath the tram to shoot this giant, but it doesn't want to die, so we just run from it. We enter the room with the schematics and get this cutscene.
The documents refer to a central laboratory designated X8, which could contain information about secret experiments conducted in the zone. Our analysts have been interested in this issue for quite some time.
Oh, very cool. So the military does know about the X-Labs, and we kind of figured that out since they attack Strelok after he breaches Lab X-18 in Shadow of Chernobyl. But it's the first time that the Major gets confirmation on this. With the schematics in hand, we head back to Cardin to figure out if he can fix this powerful rifle. He gives us the whole wait a couple of hours for me to fix it deal, and we do a side quest to hunt down a unique creature in Call of Pripyat, the Chimera. This was a great quest because it shows the necessities of stalkers and locals themselves. This Chimera has been hunting everybody, and they need it dealt with. I love the idea of hunting down big game and could totally see that being a bounty system in Stalker 2.
Crab says hello.
Fire!
It's over. Our job is done. Let's head back. Remember,
Getting back to Cardin, he has successfully repaired the Gauss rifle and even has battery packs to charge it. I love this since it reminds me of Fallout 2's Gauss rifle and other original Fallout weapons that use batteries. It's just such a cool concept that we don't see a lot nowadays in games. Anyways, with the newly refurbished rifle, we head back to Kowalski and explain to him that the rifle could not have hit the 2 helicopters, which answers the question but doesn't answer how they were taken down. We're tasked with finding another of the military guys, and I get it. We're also military, but stop sending us out on random scouting patrols if they're just getting absolutely destroyed. Or mentally incapacitated like this guy. Yeesh. Wait, why is my screen? Oh fuck.
Base, the sentry is dead. He was acting strange and attacked me. I also identified and eliminated a controller in that area.
copy that, Major. The controller must have taken over the sentry. He was a good guy. That must have been what happened to the recon unit. The controller forced them to attack each other. Anyway, over and out.
Yeah, controllers always freak me out, and this was no exception. So we start heading over to where the documents told us of the central lab, Lab X8. Unfortunately, it looks like the power is also out on this generator. It's a trope hill I will die on in video games. Anyways, we do need to turn on the generator before we go down the elevator. With nighttime over us and walking through these abandoned buildings, I couldn't help but feel a little bit scared. Not just the fact that random rooms would have zombies in them or monolith soldiers, but there's a sense of dread. Like the military is getting picked off one by one, and yeah, you have an experimental rifle, but it's kind of ass. And then you're alone, going into top secret Soviet labs. Like, goddamn, I felt more confident in a Strelok or Scar than the Major. Anyways, after fighting up the floors of what became a pretty epic firefight, we enabled the generator and used the elevator. Good gosh, they know how to wrestle my jimmies. Entering Lab X8 was one of those moments in the franchise that hits so hard because of what you've experienced in the last 2 games. It's a mixture of all the craziness of the X Labs and with the context of everything you've learned through your playtime. I can't fully explain it, and I hope you get to experience this by playing through the games yourself or have already done so, but it was cathartic to say the least. And look who shows up. Lebedev. I love this little detail they show, and he definitely was holding back things from Scar. Anyways, we go through the lab and find multiple documents, all pertaining to experiments conducted throughout the zone. One of the documents incriminates Lebedev even more, that being the order of transfer. The order of transfer states that the transfer of the research team and all materials to another laboratory called X7 was ordered. That's a lab that we haven't been to, and with 18 being the highest number that we know of, there is a lot more still laying dormant. It also names Lebedev as one of the personnel overseeing the Noosphere influence experiments. I think it would be disingenuous to say Lebedev doesn't realize it was the Noosphere schism that caused all of the zone, but the way he talks about it in Clear Sky, it makes it seem he thinks it's beyond that. Maybe it is. We also have to fight these burrowers, which are also unique to Call of Pripyat. their experiments gone physically awry and take so many goddamn gauze rifle shots. It's worth it since we get even more lore. One report on Lab X-18, the one from Shadow of Chernobyl. This report talks about experiments on living beings following emissions. Maybe that was the weird childlike Zen creatures we found. With all the documents, we try to get out of the lab, but another spaghetti moment. I swear, these controllers just want to scare you. But I guess the gauze rifle works on them pretty well. As we exit the lab, we get called in by the Colonel. He tells us a lot. The first half is stuff we already know, that we're FUBAR if we continue on this trajectory, so the Colonel tasks us to finding communication jammers that they think are around Pripyat. He also tells us to find a missing military personnel, but like, buddy, they're probably dead considering every other quest you've sent me on. Regardless, we head out to find the radio interference and the missing squad. We're told of the location interference after finding one of the bodies and stealthily go through the kindergarten building. We end up destroying what seemed to be a monolith constructed antenna, but also find one of the squad locked in a refrigerator? Which I was not expecting. I also wasn't expecting cutting to this dialogue.
So what happened?
Well, it's a long story. I'll tell you another time.
Okay.
It's getting a little choppy when it comes to pacing at this point, and a lot of going back and forth, which, with subpar writing, no game is perfect.
Also, Gary headed for Yanov's station to restock. He asked me to tell you that he won't be back for a few days.
Gotcha.
We talk to Kowalski again and are informed that he got into contact with HQ, who tell us that we're going to need to hold the fort, so to speak. He also tells us that we can talk to our superior soon, but we're interrupted by one of the grunts saying they've intercepted another radio signal, but this one is moving, and moving closer to their position. Kowalski thinks it's a monolith force and tells us to scout it out. After a bunch of running around following the signal, we figure out it's coming from the underground, and it's only one person. God, I love this part.
Don't shoot. I'm headed to the main entrance.
Who are you?
My name is Strelok.
You're the stalker who disabled the Scorcher?
Yes, but my plan didn't work. I came here to speak with your commanders. I have information that will allow the army to take control of the zone and destroy it.
And the mission is starting.
Come, let's talk inside.
Wow. For Strelok to come into the picture like this and have such an interesting take on the zone wishing to destroy it was exactly what the game's pacing needed. It's so abrupt and out of left field it just works perfectly for me, and it makes me question what the hell happened after the ending of SOC that Strelok wants to help the military, even to say his plan quote-unquote didn't work. I love how the military still don't know how the helicopters crashed, and Strelok immediately goes, "You guys don't know anomalies change after emissions? Are you stupid?" There was recently a great meme about this on the Stalker subreddit, which made me chuckle a lot. It fits this moment perfectly. You can even talk to Strelok after the cutscene, and he again doubles down on wanting to destroy the zone, which is odd considering what happens at the end of this game, but we're not there yet. We get another cutscene. This time it's with the Major contacting his superiors back at the spy base.
As of this moment, you are responsible for completing Operation Fairway. Kowalski and the Stingray squad will assist you. Report.
I've managed to acquire documents about experiments carried out in the zone. Furthermore, we've been contacted by a stalker who's been in the CNPP. His name is Strelok, and he's offered us his cooperation.
Roger. Accept his offer.
It interests me how they pause after hearing Strelok's name and then immediately say yes to his help. There seems to be something more at stake here. We also informed them that the helicopters were hit by anomalies and then the maps they used were useless. it also means that they've mapped out more recent anomalies and are sending in helicopters. And it has to happen now since we don't know when the next emission will be. Well, this is it. Escape from Pripyat. I love this final bit walking through the streets of Pripyat, fighting monolith and mutants alike. It is again one of those evolutions I was talking about before, where I could feel the influence of the last levels of Shadow of Chernobyl and Clear Sky in a much more epic and I guess open, if not linearly open, which sounds like an oxymoron, ending. It also makes me think about who's controlling all these mutant and monolith forces since there's such heavy resistance. And it looks to be coordinated, at least with all the Snorks going after you. I've talked about how Stalker has some of the best firefights out of any franchise, and again, this is another sequence that proves that. If you aren't nervous or tense with a side of excitement and determination to get out of this hellhole by now, then I don't know what game you've been playing. I don't know if this was intentional, but having this happen at nighttime was also such a boost to the atmosphere, and the horror of the situation. Seeing hordes of Snorks jumping from rooftops is something I won't forget easily, and we get such insane anomalies like Divine. We make it to the evacuation point, but the helicopters are under heavy fire from monolith forces, and we need to take them out. Thank God they fixed the bullet damage and drop from Clear Sky, or this would have been painful to take out monolith soldiers from far distances. We take out the last of the monolith forces and get this notification. It took me a minute to actually say yes to this since I didn't want to leave the zone, especially the rendition of what it was in Call of Pripyat. I also completely forgot that there were different endings, and without doing most of the side missions, I got the worst possible outcomes. But I do want to show what happens if you do complete all of the side quests and everything, because I believe that these are the canon endings, and talking about Stalker 2 or how Call of Pripyat will go into Stalker 2, I think it's important to know what they were thinking. But wow, first the helicopters flying off into the moonlight, it's kind of melancholy. If you were playing this in 2009, that was it. That was the story. I guess the good endings make it a little bit more bearable, but seriously, I have so many questions about each game that I would have gone crazy over the last 15 years. Oh wait, I already did that with a franchise. Anyways, the good endings in COP, or what I would consider the canon endings, are as follows. The Major declines a desk job and goes back as a permanent observer, whatever that means. I hope we find him in Stalker 2. With the Major's findings about the X-Labs, the reports are filed top secret and are sealed away. Doesn't sound too good for Straylock destroying the zone, or for it to be understood more. We also get this blurb about the Gauss rifle, yet they don't actually manufacture more than a couple of test batches due to the high cost of ammunition. I'm sorry, this gun can pierce through metal, wouldn't you want at least a couple in a regiment? Then we have the deviating endings, like helping Beard out and making the Skadovsk the most popular bar in the zone and a sanctuary for free stalkers. If you completed all the duty and freedom quests, you're told that freedom manages to win over the favor of Yanov Station, and that duty tries to take it by force, but were quickly eliminated and scattered throughout the zone. It'll be interesting to see how duty regroups in Stalker 2. If you help the scientists in the bunker, they actually go on to cure a bunch of diseases and prompts funding from the Ministry of Education. That's a good silver lining. If you complete evacuation with the military personnel alive, Gary, who we don't talk about in this video since I barely spoke to him during this playthrough, sets up Pripyat as some sort of frontier. I'm also interested to see what that will be like in Stalker 2. Another thing I didn't touch on this playthrough was the Oasis, which without some mentions in some of the dialogue, went above my head during this time. The Mercenaries ending is ominous, stating that there's incursions into the zone specifically for X-Labs, and that's increased, cutting off USS operatives such as the Major. The last one we'll talk about is Strelok's ending, where it is said that he gave all the information away to the USS, who in turn created a research institute to study the zone, and Strelok will be the head of it, or scientific division. So what does this mean for Stalker 2? Will Strelok come back since the zone is expanding outside of the normal parameters? What has he been doing for all these years? There are a lot of loose ends, and if you're interested in all of them, check out the wiki, which has a page dedicated to the topic. I feel like I'm just listing off things at this point. And I want to get to my conclusion. Call of Pripyat is an insanely good sequel, yet it is still not Shadow Chernobyl. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I've gathered my evidence over the last month and have put in the time. Shadow Chernobyl is possibly one of my favorite games ever, but I never would have thought that if I didn't play both Clear Sky and COP. Call of Pripyat does so many things well, and I'm glad it expands into areas that it focuses on. COP does an excellent job balancing an open world with specific objectives and the events during traveling to these places. It's hard to build a story in an open world, and I think GSC did a good job when it came to breadcrumbing the player, maybe even better than it did for SOC. My only true criticisms of the game would be odd pacing sometimes, and transitions in dialogue or moments in the story that did not make sense or didn't feel right. Other than that, Call of Pripyat delivered in so many ways throughout my time with it that I would recommend it even if you hadn't played the first two games. It has so many secrets and puzzles to unlock and people and places to explore. We're also lucky that Stalker 2 is coming out in less than a month from now, because I don't think I could wait any longer for the answers that have come up in these three epic games. I am so thankful to the people that make these types of video games. They are true art and need to be on display. And I thank you, the person that listens to my opinions and experiences. I appreciate you more than you know, and I wish you all the best. And, as always, see you next time.